Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, don't. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. From the launch your online shop stage, all the way to the we just hit 1 million orders stage. No matter what stage you're in, Shopify's there to help you grow. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/special offer, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/special offer.
I try to keep everybody in the room and as engaged as much as possible, because you're exactly right. Like, we're one snap away from the next guy being that 50, 60, 70 snap guy. And I always feel like that's one of the biggest responsibilities of position coaches. How deep can we go? Yeah, your talent might differ from your first to second or third, but the mental preparation, the readiness should be, in theory, the same or as close to it. And I always felt like that's a testament to a good coach.
On this episode of the Coaching Coordinator Podcast, presented by Vertical Raise, A.J. Cooper, Arizona State's linebackers coach, shares insights on in-season linebacker development. He highlights the importance of assessing the team's strengths and adapting to opponent tactics while maintaining a balance in your practice structure. He discusses effective practice load management to protect player well-being and outlines his weekly plan to optimize practice, and stresses the value of developing depth within the position. Be sure to check out our partner Vertical Raise. Elevate your program's online fundraising to new heights. Use Vertical Raise's online fundraising system to raise more money in less time. Get in touch with your Vertical Raise fundraising coach. The link is in the show notes. Be sure to stay tuned for our Winning Edge takeaway following the episode.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. From the launch your online shop stage, all the way to the we just hit 1 million orders stage. No matter what stage you're in, Shopify's there to help you grow. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/special offer, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/special offer.
At BlueNile.com, you can find endless ways to make your moments sparkle. From classic and timeless jewelry gifts to creating the custom engagement ring of her dreams, all at prices you won't find at a traditional jeweler. And right now, you can save up to 40% on fine jewelry and 25% on engagement ring settings during the Blue Nile Anniversary Sale, going on now. Go to BlueNile.com to shop the Blue Nile Anniversary Sale and save up to 40%. That's BlueNile.com.
We're talking defense today on this season episode of the Coaching Coordinator Podcast, and focusing on knowing who you are, what you do well, but at the same time, being able to balance that with some checks and adjustments to things that you might face as the season continues. And joining me to discuss that is the linebackers coach at Arizona State, A.J. Cooper. A.J., it's been a while. It's great to have you back here.
I appreciate you having me on, man. It's good to see you again.
Definitely. So let's get right into this topic. Mid-season, we hit that time of the year. As coaches, we start to have a good understanding of who we are as a team, as a unit. If it's a position coach, his position guys. And it's a time where now we can take that and really build on those things. But there's always, in this conversation we're going to have, there's always that, well, what if they do this? What if we do that? Chasing ghosts type of thing too. So what's your approach as you hit the midseason to you're going to do with your guys to keep them the foundation of what you built?
I think you kind of touched on it. You're getting into that flow and that comfort zone of, hey, this is what our guys are doing well. These are the coverages we're executing well. These are the run fits that we're hitting well. This is who we are. I think at that point, you better have a pretty good idea of who you are and structuring practice that way. You know what I mean? To really hammer home on whether it's our man run fits or it's our cover 3 pass drops or if it's our quarters fits, whatever it is. man, this is what the kids know. This is what they're doing well. Hey, this is how we see people trying to attack us. Usually middle of the year, you see the consistent themes and people are trying to attack you, right? So it's just continually honing in on those fundamentals, keeping those edges sharp for those kids. You know what I mean? But then you're also starting to get those one-offs a little bit that, ooh, you saw somebody else attack a similar defense in this way. And you go, okay, hey, this would be really hard. Or you're watching film on Tuesday night going, oh, shoot, man, if they run this, we got an issue in this. You know what I mean? Like it's that vaunted ghost you try to chase. So I think it's the places, the years we've had the most success, the places I've been at on defense, it's being very consistent in what we do, but also really start to understand who we are and what we need to get better at. Hey, you know what? We got popped in red zone last week in cover two. So we need to shore this up. And it's something that's fixable, if that makes sense. So having that parameter, because we only get 20 hours, we only got so much time, right? And so it's just really looking at what you're doing well, really starting to lean into what you do well, but also having an understanding and that ability to go, okay, anticipate how people are going to continue to attack you. And if there are any areas that are still weak and how to kind of shore those up, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. As you're looking at that, you mentioned, okay, hey, we had a few issues here or there this particular week. Looking at the structure of practice, how do you start to account for time, and maybe do you build more time in for those things? Is it just something that you make part of the regular flow? What are you trying to do, I guess, with your practice routine, and how does that look as you start to hit the middle of the season, need to make those adjustments here and there?
Well, I think first of all, it's looking at, can you either continue to build and grow in the areas you're doing well, or change or get better at something within your individual. I mean, is this something where for the linebackers, I can take 5 minutes and work a boot scramble drill? I can work a panic drop drill. I can work some form of a run fit drill that either we're doing really well and have an issue with, or do we need to get to an 11 on 11 period? I think that's the first thing with the coordinators that I've worked with that we kind of sit down and look at is, okay, can we get this fixed in Indy, or do we need to make this a group emphasis? And then I think the next thing you got to look at is, okay, what type of tempo? Is this really a teaching moment where we're just going to take 5 minutes and walk through? And I think, especially when you're starting to get to the middle of the year and injuries are starting to, pile up a little bit, it's going, hey, should we take 5 minutes to walk this? Do the kids need to see this at full speed? Like, what type of tempo do we want to teach this at, right? And then obviously, do your scout players have the ability to show you that picture at the speed or with the likeness that you need, if that makes sense? And then from there, like I said, I think it's just being conscious of that. And because that's when those adjustments can come into play in the middle of the year. And it's just being conscious of who you are and what you're doing well. But also keeping it simple. I look at one of the best performances we had last year. We ended up losing that game, but at least defensively, we played well against the University of Washington. And that was probably one of the more simple game plans in the middle of the year. We said, hey, we're going to be simple. Our kids are going to play really fast. We're going to get them on their toes and being aggressive and attacking things. And we're not going to try to be perfect every call in every situation. And Coach Ward did an outstanding job with that game plan. And we didn't get the win, but I think that was a real confidence booster for our kids just to say, hey, we don't need 8 to 10 coverages in this week. Let's roll in with about 4 and play like our hair's on fire, if that makes sense.
For sure. We talked about that idea of chasing ghosts. And sometimes I think you have to evaluate, well, how much of this are we going to see, and how many calls do we need to carry, right? I heard on a recent episode we did with Brian Vaughn at West Texas A&M, he talked about, is it 4 times they're doing it or is it 40? And game plan needs to reflect that you do have to make sure you have enough answers, right? That you don't want to go down the rabbit hole of all the what ifs, but at the same time, having enough answers built in. So I guess, how do you guys go through and filter for those things and determine we better spend a little bit more time on this and maybe have an adjustment or two versus, hey, we're good with 1 call?
I think it really depends, the situation that the play came up in. I think it depends on who they did it against. If they're doing, let's say it's a specific run game and they're doing it against a 3-down opponent and we're a 4-down team, we probably need to throw that out the window. If we get it, we get it. And hey, we'll live to survive another day, right? Or if it's a pass concept, we're a weak roll cover 3 team and it's a quarters beater. Well, we don't major in quarters. So is that something we really need to worry about? You know what I mean? Did this show up early on in the year where a lot of times you see people's like early game 1, 2, 3, you're going to see brand new stuff because everybody had all off season to watch film and clinic with each other and try new stuff out, right? So I think, and you hit it on the head, how many times do you see it? It was a one-time thing. So I think taking all that stuff into account, I think the older you get too, the less you start to worry about that stuff a little bit and go, hey, let the kids play fast and let's be aggressive. And now, but again, if it's shown up multiple times against a similar defense or similar coverage structure, then you got to start to go, okay, then we're looking at, okay, where does it fall within our guys' rules, right? Like, is this something that we can already tie into a pre-existing rule? Great. Hey, guys, our foundation of rules, boom, boom, boom. Now this ties into that. And they go, oh, okay, that's not that big a deal. And then this ghost that we probably spent 2 hours chasing, this happened a couple times last year, where you spend 2 or 3 hours game planning, chasing. I walk in the back room, I'm sweating. I'm like, golly, we got to get this. And I go through it, and the guys go, yeah, that's just our base rule, right? And then I look at it, I go, yeah, I guess you guys are right. And that 2 or 3 hours of stress was over nothing. Or is it outside their base rules? Like, those are the ones that are most concerning. Things that you see multiple times against similar structures from a defensive standpoint that are outside of your guys' rules, right? So how do you handle that? Do you have to now add a layer, or do you just try to stay out of the call? And it sounds bad to say, but you hope you don't get it. And if you get it, that you survive it and you go on. Sometimes some of the best defensive coaches I've been around will always tell you this, hey, sometimes we give the other side of the ball too much credit. They don't always realize how hard it is. And that's not a shot on offensive guys, because it's vice versa. Sometimes we do stuff that's really hard and we don't realize it, and those offensive guys hate it and we don't call it enough. You know what I mean?
When it comes to towing, seeing is believing. That's why Chevy Truck's advanced camera technology offers up to 8 available cameras for 14 unique views, so you can focus on the view that really matters. Chevrolet, together let's drive. Learn more about Chevy Trucks at Chevy.com. Safety or driver assistance features are no substitute for the driver's responsibility to operate the vehicle in a safe manner. Read the vehicle owner's manual for important feature limitations and information.
Right. Yeah, I think it's understanding too. When they called it the situations, they called it, were these critical situations where it came up? Are they putting something on tape to waste my time? I mean, as a coordinator, there were games where I knew, okay, we're probably going to get up a little bit. I'm going to work this package. I don't intend it to use it this next week. I might use it down the road. Let's get it out here for the first time. Let's get it on film and make them spend time on it because it's something new and different, right? So, I mean, you're playing the psychological warfare game with those guys. They got you in the room worrying about it, like you said, 2 hours.
No
and you go in and your players say, oh, yeah, that's what we do.
Yeah, trust me, there's times, especially when you get some games that get out of hand and turn into blowouts, shut the tape off. Stop watching. Don't put it in the numbers, in our breakdown numbers. Don't put it in the cut-ups. Because the same thing, like you can see them kind of go, I don't want to say rogue a little bit. You got me? But you can see the coordinators start to have a little bit of fun outside of what they normally do.
Well, your position, the inside linebackers, especially going into this new conference, there's some teams known for being a black and blue type of offense. You know, you have to make sure that you have a good balance of, hey, I'm keeping these guys well tuned and we're working physically on the things we need, with also how much do I need to put on them over the course of the week, especially as the season goes on. How do you look at balancing that? Because that's not an easy thing. I mean, we could go to all the wearables and the data that comes from those, but you as the coach kind of have to have a feel for it as well.
Yeah, 100% right. I think number one thing, you got to know your players and what they do well, what their strengths, what their weaknesses are. You got to know if you got a high rep guy or if you got a guy that can take limited round of reps. If he's playing 70, 80 snaps for you on Saturday and he needs a little extra time to get ready for Tuesday or Wednesday, how you address that. So I think number one, you got to know how your guys bounce back physically. You know what I mean? How much they're in that training room or not in that training room. Then I think the second part is obviously what their mental capacity is, right? I kind of touched on that, man. Are they guys that, man, they need to see a ton of new pitchers, and when things change, they need a ton of time at it? To me, that's where the coaching comes in. It's like, okay, how do I figure out, without going out at a 2-hour practice and absolutely maxing this guy's loadout, how do I get out there and teach and coach the same thing? So obviously a ton of film room time, ton of walkthrough time. I'm really big on figuring out how kids learn. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying I'm the greatest coach out there, but I feel like maybe I can help speed up the process of a new game plan to a kid, or a new coverage, a new scheme, whatever it is, by going through the steps of, is this kid going to learn by video? Is he learning by PowerPoint? Does he learn by writing? Do we need to get out there and walk through it? Do we need to be on cans? What is it going to take really this new concept or thing to click to this kid so we can avoid having to go 2.5 hours of beating them down physically? Because they all learn by doing it. But is there another step along the way that I can help with that process and with those guys, if that makes sense? Because I think we all know, especially defensive football, they play the best when they're confident and they know what they're doing and they can attack and be aggressive. So I really get into a routine of structuring like, hey, on Tuesday, we're going to be a big fundamental day, especially in the run game, with our feet, with our hands, with tackling. Wednesday's catered a little more towards pass coverage with a touch of tackling, but starting to back off on that. And then Thursday's walkthrough, and Friday we do a fast Friday. So it's a couple drops and boom, boom, we're out. So I've got our EDDs already set pretty much every week, unless we see a very unique scheme or unless there's a specific technique or skill set that we have to address. And so I have to make sure I have that drill ready and I have it sharp so we can get 2 or 3 reps and get on to the next thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. In looking at your position too, obviously, hey, it's going to be a physical position. And you get into the midseason, you start heading into late season. I mean, you need the insurance policy of, I got another guy ready to go. I got another guy game ready. How do you work your next man up in, not just in practice, but over the course of the game weeks as the season's wearing on, so that one, when needed, you can take some of the workload off of your number one guy, but also just you're one snap away, right?
Sure. I've always tried to, linebackers are a little bit different than when I coached D-line, where D-line, I rotated a little bit more. So naturally kept guys engaged a little bit more. Generally, linebackers, you play through longer spurts of time, but I still try to give guys, if I'm playing a guy 60 to 70 snaps, I'm hoping to get another guy 15 to 20. I want to keep that competition fresh. I want to keep them engaged. You know what I mean? And so for me, it's at practice. It's kind of balance the repetition out a little bit more sometimes. When we do competitive periods, I love what Coach Dillingham does. We do a lot of competitive stuff versus each other throughout the game week. It's not extended period of times, but we'll line up and do 2-minute. We'll line up and do tempo. We'll line up and do some different things, some blitz stuff. So trying to keep those other guys engaged, if that makes sense. And then I'll be honest, I just coach everybody, man. I don't treat the starters any differently than the backup, than the third stringer, than the fourth stringer. Heck, I have freshmen that still come to the freshmen will go to the scout meetings or whoever's in scout, and then I'll have them come in afterwards. I have them, if at a home game, all those guys come to pregame meal, and I have them all, I give them a 3-fold quiz, and they all do the quizzes. So I try to keep everybody in the room and as engaged as much as possible, because you're exactly right. Like, we're one snap away from the next guy being that 50, 60, 70 snap guy. And I always feel like that's one of the biggest responsibilities of position coaches. How deep can we go? Yeah, your talent might differ from your first to second, your third, but the mental preparation and the readiness should be, in theory, the same or as close to it. And I always felt like that's a testament to a good coach, is a guy that can have another kid mentally ready if something happens.
Well, I think the other thing you're doing there is very important in today's landscape of college football, is those guys who maybe are not dressing, keeping them engaged on those game days as well. I mean, they need to know this is about your development. Yeah, it's not your time yet, but hey, we're thinking about you, we're developing you. And ultimately, when the time of the year comes up for the portal, you want them to know, like, hey, we got a plan for you.
Yep, 100%. I mean, it sounds small, but having them at meals, it's having them sitting in there watching film with you on Friday night or Saturday morning. It's giving them a quiz and holding them accountable to the scores they get on it, and putting the pressure on them, just like what I would expect a guy that's starting to execute the same way. And everybody look at me and go, well, that kid hadn't had the practice reps. He's been on scout team half the time. Yeah, that's fine. But he also feels and knows he's getting coached. And again, not saying I'm perfect. I don't think anybody's out there been perfect with the portal. But again, I think kids want to be coached, and the more during a busy time of the year. And I think the kids understand that when you're pouring into your guys that are going to be playing on Saturday, if you got a young guy that sees it as a position coach or a coordinator or head coach, that you're taking the time out to coach him, like, that says something to him. And actions speak a lot louder than words. And that stuff matters, when you're developing your position group and you're developing a culture.
Well, AJ, I appreciate you coming back on the podcast, spending some time with us, sharing some ideas here that are definitely useful in season. And best of luck to you and the Sun Devils here the rest of the way.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Here is the Winning Edge takeaway from our conversation with Coach AJ Cooper. The biggest takeaway from this episode is how important the position coach is to the long-term success of the team. Position coach is not the glorious position that the head coach or coordinator are to people outside the team's view, but seasons can actually hinge on the work that position coaches do. The next up ability of a team is 100% on the position coach, and Coach Cooper offered valuable ideas on how to get that done. It's in our nature as coaches to always be striving for more in the profession, but your third linebacker or third left guard or third running back might be forced into the spot line down the line, and that's when your work in developing all your players comes to the forefront in helping contribute to wins in a big way. Never discount the importance of the work you do. Hopefully injuries don't take you into that situation, but your hard work will be so valuable if it happens, and the long-term effects of developing every player you have will pay dividends to the team in the future. If you are enjoying the podcast, please go to your favorite app and rate and review. It helps other coaches find the podcast and helps our game. Be sure to check out our sponsors. They're listed in the show notes and in the 10% Toolkit. These are companies that we believe in, and they also provide some great benefits to you as the listener, so check those out in the 10% Toolkit. The list is in the show notes. Be sure to check out our new episode each week, the Coach and Coordinator National Coach of the Week, presented by Modern Football Technology. That'll be out every single Wednesday, and we'll be highlighting some of the great high school coaches from around the country. Follow all we're doing at coachandcoordinator.com and follow us on X at Coach K. Grabowski.